If you like what you see in today's P&E and you're interested in learning more, submit an application to the CPG Wolves Coaching for Profits program, where you can join a pack of poker players hungry for success, as well as get coaching from Coach Brad and myself. Without any further ado, here's today's Play and Explain. Opening ace-3 of diamonds here on the button. Get a flat from what I'm pretty sure is a fish in the small blind, broken stack, finding a flat in the small blind, all trending towards fish behavior. If you know anything about me based on my older P&Es, you probably know that I just spam the bet button versus fish. Don't think that they have much choice other than to do a lot of overfolding pretty much on every street. It's just a function of V-pipping way too wide pre-flop. It's hard to flop strong enough hands often enough to be able to defend appropriately, so just gonna take advantage of that by doing a lot of c-betting versus fish. Not that c-betting ace-3 of diamonds with the double backdoors and an overcard there is anything crazy, but would have done it with a much weaker hand as well. Jack 10 of clubs, bottom left table. Maybe we get to play versus the... Hey, we do. So we get our fishy friend in the small blind to come along one more time. Again, like usual, going to be c-betting this flop, but I'm actually going to be sizing up from a third. One of the cool things that we can see in the data is that fish really like to check raise paired boards. So one of the things that I do with my air to try to discourage the check raising, especially when I have a hand that can't really continue, is to just size up with my with my c-bet size. Yeah, I think that's just one of the counters. Gonna play or try to play another pot versus the fish with 6-5 of spades. Ooh, okay, so he comes in with an 11 big blind 3-bet here. I'm just gonna fold this hand first and then go into my explanation as to why. So first of all, this fish just hasn't even over 13 hands, I guess. Like, he's been v-pipping a lot but hasn't been 3-betting very much. I think most fish generally tend to under 3-bet, and he is also starting out with, I think, fewer than 80 big blinds. So while 6-5 of spades would be a pure continue versus a reg who's 3-betting a normal range at 100 big blinds, I think someone who is under 3-betting and is playing a shorter than normal stack 6-5 of spades is just not going to perform very well. You generally need your opponents to be 3-betting appropriately and also be able to win a lot of money when you make a good hand with 6-5 suited. So gonna make a exploitative fold based on the player type and the stack size there. Man, got hands all over the place. So okay, gonna open nines in middle position, top right table, bottom right table, 3-betting aces. Assume it's a reg in the big blind, so just gonna start out with a small c-bet. Get check raised, smallish. I think I have a lot of different options here. Obviously not going to fold nines, but gonna 3-bet the flop small. I think this is the best way to realize my equity, or maybe not best, but the most profitable way to realize my equity. Yeah, I think we can get called by worse and have a pretty easy fold versus a flop 4-bet. Turn as a jack, not a great card for, I mean, my hand does get a little bit better. We improve to an open-ender, but I think a lot of this guy's check raise and then calling range, especially when I 3-bet minimum, is going to be a ton of jack X, everything from queen jack offsuit, jack 9, jack 7. So yeah, gonna check this one back now. We make a straight on the river. Pretty clear value bet, just got to decide what size. I think I still just want to target the jack X portion of his range. Would expect a lot of the jack X's except for jack 9 to check this river. Don't know how big they're gonna feel good about calling off, but hopefully they do call 3/4. Get the fold this time, assuming it's gonna be some kind of 8, or maybe some sort of other bluff like 6-7 on the flop that folds the river. Hopefully not a jack, because that would mean that my size is not great. Fish limp, gonna ISO with the 10-7 of spades on the top left table. And flop an open ender. Again, just usual fish strat. Just gonna start pounding them with multiple bets or multiple streets of betting. This hand is a really, really obvious one with our strong dynamic equity. And we don't even have to worry about later streets. Pretty sweet. 3-betting pocket queens on the bottom right facing under the gun open. 8 big blinds is going to be my in position 3-bet size facing a 2.5 big blind open. Really good flop for my hand. Can definitely start out with a big bet here. I think just targeting his over pairs. Also, he's just going to have hands like 2 overs in the gutter with hands like, you know, ace jack suited, ace queen suited, ace 10 suited, that type of stuff. So going to size up here and immediately start going after some value. Definitely not my favorite turn. Now we lose to jacks, which is one of the hands that we were targeting for value on the flop, and also whatever flush draws he doesn't decide to check raise. I think my strategy here is just going to be to continue betting when I don't have a diamond and still try to get value from, like, you know, 10s, 9s, 8s, maybe like, I don't know if he has very much offsuit ace X, but offsuit ace X with a diamond. Calls pretty quickly and have a pretty easy check back, I think, on this river. Ooh. Interesting. 10% donk. Don't think I'm gonna fold getting 11-1. Think. Okay, yeah. I mean, don't expect to win. Don't have to win there very often when I'm getting 11-1. But I think the bigger mistake there would be, I think the safer thing there to do is just call. It would be an easy to make an overfolding mistake when you're getting 11-1. A little bit harder to make an overcalling mistake, unless he's just never ever bluffing, which, you know, could always be the case. My ISO, the likely fish who's limping under the gun. Really good flop. Want him to continue with as wide of a range as possible. Also, I think I might have mentioned this earlier in this play and explain, but I think fish do a lot of check raising versus a small c-bet size, and now I actually have a hand that kind of wants to get check raised, so gonna go with the small c-bet size with the kings. Little bit scary of a turn, but actually think that I can continue value betting this spot. Still get called by 9x flush draws, and I mean, a fish is gonna have hands like 5 deuce and 5-3 and deuce 3 and that type of stuff. So I think there's gonna be a wider than usual range to target, and then now once we get to the river, just checking back and trying to win versus a 9 or king 7 of hearts. Not bad, not bad. 3-betting the under the gun open. Again, 8 big blind 3-bet in position. I mean, obviously not having overpairs is great, but I think having 2 queens on a king eye board is still pretty good in a 3-bet pot. Would expect him to 4-bet most of his ace kings. Maybe not when he opens under the gun and gets 3-bet, but still expect him to 3-bet the majority of his ace kings. Gonna be checking back with a club and doing more betting on the turn when I don't have a club. Very similar to the, I think I had queens last time too, actually, versus the under the gun player that had 10s, and then easy call facing block here. Ooh, he did have ace king that he didn't 4-bet pre-flop. Interesting. But yeah, kind of the opposite situation to my queens versus the pocket 10s guy who decided to donk 1/10 pot on the river, where I'm doing a little bit more betting on the turn, flush completing turn when I don't have a club, and doing a little bit more checking back when I do have a club. Wow, she get to play 10-3 offsuit. Oh. All right, so this hand we had a fish limp on the button. Just gonna give him a little green tag. Ooh, okay. So I think small blind does a reg. Don't have any info to lead me to believe otherwise. Comes out with a 2/3 donk. I think it's pretty close between call and raise, but just gonna start with call with bottom 2 pair and kind of see what's up. If he checks this turn, then I'll feel really, really good about my hand. Okay, now I feel a little bit sad that I didn't raise the flop, but can hopefully start making up for that lost value here. Assuming he just has some sort of queen here, like queen 5 suited, something in that territory. Oh. To block or go for the check back? I think I'm just going to check this one. Whoa. Whoa. Okay. Guess we got pretty lucky, actually. Good thing we didn't raise the flop. Really surprised you didn't bet the turn with that hand. Just worried that I have 12 straights or something like that on the turn, I guess. Interesting, though. Dodged the bullet there. It has actually ended up being a great run out. First pocket aces of today's session. And we get an open. Nice. Definitely, I mean, I was pretty sure the small blind was a fish, but once he finds a flat in the small blind, I'm much more confident. Oh, maybe we can get everybody? Nice. Okay, so my strat's going to be pretty simple. 3-bet pot, out of position, PFR, multi-way, just going to be checking my range. My entire range, I think that's just the easiest way for me to manage my strategy instead of splitting and having a betting range and a checking range. Really nice that we allow. Nice. Small argument for a raise here, but I think given the small blind's pre-flop strategy, he's going to be capable of just showing up with so much random shit here that I'm actually just going to flat and hopefully just let him bomb off with the hands that he double calls with. Man. Okay. Little nervous about the snap jam on the flush completing river, but still gonna stick with the plan. I think this guy can just show up with so much wacky stuff. You could also just beat. Okay, I was gonna say we could also beat value, but wouldn't think it's too crazy for the small blind to show up with some sort of king X. Maybe a little bit more rare than total air or like 2-pair plus, but still think it's gonna be in there. And we get an immediate chance for redemption with aces. Would normally 3-bet to $60 versus a reg or like a normal fish, but given how I've already seen that this guy does not seem to give a shit about pre-flop ranges, because it's gonna size up a little bit, make it 75, and pretty sweet. I feel much better about this call than the last one. Nice. Okay, not nice. Heart. All right. Time to fucking lock in. It's gonna be one of those sessions, huh? I don't know if I've ever gotten stacked with aces back to back at the same table. I mean, I'm probably done something similar, but back to back at the exact same table. I don't know if that's ever happened before. Glad I got that one on tape. Oh, you guys might see me completely unravel here, or who knows? Maybe my mental game is strong and I'll be able to stick it out and make a nice little comeback. Definitely defending ace 10, facing the slightly bigger than min open. Not going to be playing any check raises on ace ace queen out of the big blind, even with a hand as strong as this. Comes with the 150 overbet on the turn. Interesting line. Usually I would have expected a larger flop C bet if this guy was going to overbet the turn, but I guess it's not crazy having a 1/3 or quarter pot and then overbet on this specific board texture. I'm gonna call here. Not loving it. I expect a lot of overbets on the river. This hand might be a fold facing overbet on the river. I mean, I think having a 10, especially the 10 of hearts, is a little sad because, you know, oh wow, he doesn't overbet the river. I was gonna say, I mean, I'm hoping he has hands like king 10, jack 10.
and would definitely think the hard heart combos go into his overbet bluffing range. So it's a little sad that I have a 10-year. I don't really know what to make of this line. Small, huge, medium. Don't think his boats would take this line. Don't think that like ace, king, ace, jack would take this line. I think they would just overbet the river. So, okay, that's it. I would have thought that, especially with that boat, that he would overbet the river. Given that he doesn't block any of the ace-x, like completely unblocks my calling range. But I guess that sort of explains the quarter pot on the flop. Not a big deal though. We're in such a deep hole after those two aces back to back that what's a slightly deeper hole at this point? No big deal. Wow. 4/5 of a royal. Not a bad flop. Definitely starting to start out with big bet here. Very dynamic, connected boards. I'm going to be playing a big bet or check strategy on the flop. This hand, very, very obvious big bet candidate. Going to be one of my best bluffs. The flop. Oh, man, what a turn. I couldn't have asked for a better turn. Gonna overbet turn here. I think a lot of my big betting range is gonna be, you know, diamond draws, spade draws, straight draws. So just have tons of hands to bluff on the turn, and also just some obvious value. Hopefully, we can get this guy to the river. Generally play 3-bet or fold in position, but gonna make an exception here with the fish in the small blind. I think, yeah, I mean, this is the type of stuff that I'm hoping happens that the small blind comes along with a range that's way too wide. Not a super exciting flop. Just gonna try to check this down. Maybe going half pots the river. Okay, I'm gonna do something a little spicy here and actually raise small. I think under their gun can find some really thin value, but not really thin, but thinnish value bets now on the river once it gets checked down. Hands like kings, queens, jack X, I think are all gonna value bet the river. And I think when he picks the half pot, nice. Yeah, I guess I was just gonna say, when he picks the half pot size, he's way more likely to have those types of value bets in his range. He probably goes bigger with his ace-x, even the ones that check twice. And it's very, very reasonable for us to have some sort of 6x in our range. And I think I'd have played it the same way. I wouldn't have bet the flop, wouldn't bet the turn. You know, flatting a hand like 6-7 or 5-6 on the button, especially with a fish in the small blind, isn't that crazy. So nice. Glad that one worked out. Got a 52-4 fish, limping the button. Easy ISO with pretty much any 2 Broadway combo. Not a good flop for my end. Generally do a lot of checking. When that's the case, not a good turn. Gonna check some more. Not a good river for my hand, but a really good river for my range. So I'm actually gonna bet really big here and just try to fold out all non-ace x1 pairs. Yeah, don't know if there's a big nice. Just gonna say, if I don't think there's a huge difference between going 75 and pot, I think I just get so much credit for having ace x when I ISO pre and check it down. We just pretty much need to fade him having an ace, which is less likely when he starts out with limp. Multi-way action. I think I need a slightly stronger hand to squeeze. I don't know. King Jack, maybe fine. Glad I didn't squeeze after we get this flop. Interesting turn. I think this is probably one of my better bluffs. Don't want to bet multiple streets here, so I'm actually just going to go with a big bet on the turn, and if I get called, shut it down. I think if I get called, their calling range, especially the reg here, is going to be a lot of 4x strong ace-x that he checks on the flop because it's very multi-way, and then some flush draws. Maybe he checks some weak flushes on the flush draws on the flop, so I'm just going to check and give up here, expecting him to only call the turn over bet with hands that are likely not folding the river, like a 4. Yeah. I don't know. Not much else to say there other than I'm glad that I did not bet again on the river. Flop. A little surprised to see someone I thought was a reg come out with a small size on this board texture, but whatever. Just gonna check raise. Overs, nut flush draw, or overcard nut flush draw. Backdoor straight draw. Not so much stuff going on. I'm gonna keep barreling the turn. Probably one of the worst rivers. Don't really want to be bluffing board pairs because that significantly reduces my value. My value on this board, like when I check raise flop, is going to be hands like King Jack, Jack 7, pocket 7s, and the Jack really reduces my value combos, along with the fact that I have 2 hearts, which are 2 cards that I would hope my opponent has when I'm targeting folds on the river. So interesting, he comes out with a third. I'm just gonna fold before I talk myself into a call. Yeah, I feel like historically I've found so many bad calls there, and hoping they have their hearts or queen 10 or something like that. I'm gonna play discipline today. Disciplined, even facing a third on the river with ace high. King queen of clubs, easy 3-bet on the button. Gonna defend down here with king 5 suited. Table 1, king queen of clubs, don't flop anything. Backdoor straight draw, I guess, but gonna start out with check. Don't turn anything. Once this guy checks, I will be checking back, or if this guy checks, I will be checking back. Kind of an interesting decision, I think, if he does decide to check the river third time. Have a pretty big target here in terms of better hands I can fold out, mostly being his ace highs. So I don't think I have to go a big size. I think a small size here on the river targets the hands that I want to fold out. Yeah, okay. Don't think he's, I assume he just folds like ace 10 suited, ace, maybe, I don't know, whatever ace-x he peels the 3-bet with, but I don't think sizing up gets me any extra folds from like his actual bluff catchers, like his pocket pairs and 1-pair type stuff, or I guess technically 2-pair on that board texture. So just gonna bluff small. Okay, so open king jack offsuit in the cutoff, get a flat from the fish on the button. Gonna be checking range just when I'm the out of position PFR in 2-bet plots. One of the things that checking range does is it gives me some very strong bluff catchers, or maybe even potential check raises. Just gonna bluff catch with this combo here. I don't know, this guy's playing 56% of hands, so I think it's very likely that he finds lots of candidates that he feels like he needs to bluff. And it's, yeah, again, it's just really nice, like when you check range, to have like hands that can comfortably call down 3 streets. And hopefully that's, It looks like that's what's about to happen here. I don't know if hopefully is might be a little bit too strong. Might get punished for that on this 10 of clubs river, but would still call a bet here unless he goes huge. Nice. He does not go huge. Ace king offsuit facing a big blind 3-bet. Could flat, could 4-bet. Gonna go with 4-bet. Don't think there's a huge need to 4-bet too big when you're in position. So it's just gonna be a little larger than a click. Will be calling off if he does jam. Oh, here we go. Oh, diamond. This reroll never hits, man. Let me know if you've ever hit the ace king versus ace king reroll. That one, okay, fine. Oh, maybe I'm asking for too much. He had the suited ace king, so you know, won't be too upset there, but probably going to be winding down the session soon. Up a gut shot on table 1 with king 10. Facing check back. I think on a board texture this dynamic and also just being like double Broadway, I'm actually going to go for an overbet size for my turn probe. I think my value range on this board texture is going to be extremely narrow. Like I don't think I'm going to be probing that turn with hands like ace 5, for example, you know, just like thinner one pair value. So because of that, because my value range is going to be super selective, it's actually, I'm going to go really, really big because I'm just going to be value betting a lot of 2-pair plus type hands. Yeah, and I think to balance that out, it's pretty easy to find the hands that I want to big bet. For my bluffs, king 10, I think makes a lot of sense with a gut shot, and also have some other candidates and the 2 flush draws that were available there, but not too much to talk about, I guess. Oh, play the first hand of the session. Average flop. Pretty nice to have a diamond. Gonna start out with a small C bet. Interesting turn. I think I can still value bet my hand and probably just do a lot of checking back on the river. I think there's still pair plus draw. I mean, even just naked draws, combo draws that you can get called by. Probably going to be one of the thinner hands that I value bet. Don't think I would bet a 10 because some sort of 10x is a big part of the range that I'm targeting, but no matter. Gonna ISO the post with pocket fours. I think it's actually pretty nice to fold out the big blind and okay, well, it's not gonna work, but I was gonna say it's pretty nice to fold out the big blind's equity in this spot, even if we don't fold out the poster. And obviously it's really nice when they both fold. Bottom set, still just gonna start out with check here. I think I'm gonna check my entire range. One of the things that we've seen from our mass data analysis at CPG Wolves is that these low flops get stabbed at a very, very high frequency. So I expect to get a check raise in here a lot. Really nice to see him stab the big size. The big size, another thing that we can see in the data, is less folded facing check raise. It's more likely to be a hand that wants to continue. So yeah, I'm gonna size up here with my check raise. Very dynamic board, easy to find my natural bluffs here. Diamond hands, 8-9, 10-8, some sort of 5x. So yeah. No dice, no dice. So we got a short stack fish opening here on the button. Definitely going to defend queen 10. Really good flop. Fish comes out with a pretty big bet. I'm gonna do something kind of funky here. I think the standard thing to do here would be to jam. But another cool thing that we can see from the data is that it's actually really, really important to bet the river versus fish when you are bluffing. So I'm going to start out with a really small check raise here. It's a literal min raise. Bet the turn really small and plan on jamming the river. It's not going to be a huge jam on the river just because we start out super short. But the river is where you have the most fold equity versus fish. And so I do a lot of really strange sizing stuff to make sure that when I am jamming the river versus these short stacks. So really small on the turn here, and then leave a little bit of meat. All right, we don't even have to worry about it, but yeah, it's probably one of the stranger things that you'll ever see me do. All right, open A7 off on the button, flop top pair top kicker versus a fish in the big blind. Pretty sweet spot. Just going to start out with a large C bet. Obviously not my favorite turn, but still going to continue value betting this hand. Think there's a lot of pair plus draw, a lot of just stuff that we can target. Sizing down a little bit just to make sure that I'm getting called by worse hands. River seems close on an overcard. Gonna check. Oh, nice. Just gonna say, I was gonna put more money in the pot with this ace king offsuit, but I guess now you'll just have a chance to put it all in. Assuming, well, I don't think there's a situation where I fold this hand even if C2 decides to put it all in himself, so. Hey, he's thinking about it. I was thinking about something. Yeah. I don't think there's much else to do here other than... Ooh. River. King queen offsuit, gonna be a 100% 3-bet facing cutoff open. And I will fold if he 4-bets. Really nice flop. Flop texture is this dry. I am just going to be starting out with a small C-bet with my whole range. Easy turn C-bet. Going to continue to value bet here. With top pair second kicker. Really nice that I don't have to be worried about top pair top kicker because ace king just 4-bets pure pre-flop. So I think we can just go for some straight value here on the turn and probably jam a whole bunch of rivers. Let's go deep in the tank. Think about jamming. Nope. Easy open here. Blind versus blind. Pocket sixes. Go to a flop. Pretty simple strategy. Just going to be checking my entire range on 9-9 deuce. Do a lot of checking out of position in these blind versus blind scenarios. I think once it goes check on the flop, I can just start value betting turn and maybe even the river depending on how this board runs out, but pretty easy spot to value bet the turn, I think. Ooh, get the best river. Close decision here between just betting really big myself and checking. I'm actually just going to check. I think a lot of the hands that I'm targeting with a bet themselves anyways, plus there's a lot of brick stuff that we can target, diamond type hands, maybe even like ace 3 ace 4. Don't think those hands need to bluff this river on a paired board, but nice, we get a pretty big value bet. And I think like another thing that I like to think about when I have hands this strong is just like I have a hand that wants to play for all the money or like as much money as possible. And the way to play for more than one bet, I think, is just to check the river and let them bet and get a check raise in. Maybe a little bit too greedy with size, but would really want to stack hands like 3, 4, 7, 8. Don't think those hands bet 3-bet if I check raise to a different size. So really just targeting top of range with this very, very large river check jam. Oh, nobody folds after they tank down this long, right? Come on, man. You can do it. You can do it. Right. Gonna be curious to see what he folded there in the session review. We get a 3x open from the fish and the cutoff. Kind of a question as to size here. So you just go kind of normal. And gonna check this flop and hopefully let him jam some hands that wouldn't call a jam. Pretty easy bluff catch here. Nice. That's a pretty good example of a hand that I don't think would call a jam on the flop. Yeah, anyways, whatever. Good result. Not much to talk about. Ace king suited in the big blind. Gonna 3-bet or 4-bet maybe? 3-bet. And facing 4-bet. Nothing to do here, but put it in at 100 bigs. Good luck us. Snapped. Oh. Oh, he has clubs. No, not anymore. I'm gonna defend the big blind here in our little 3-handed game. Really good flop for my end. See what size he comes out with and decide whether we want to check call or check raise. Can't see myself folding. Really small. Yeah, just gonna have more check raises versus this size than I would versus the larger sizes. This hand is definitely gonna make it in there. Definitely not hurting for any value check raises on this board. We're gonna have everything from 2-pair sets, every 2-pair in every set other than aces, and just gonna barrel a turn. Hopefully we get a red card on the river or a fold on the turn. We get the fold on the turn. Gonna 3-bet king queen suited versus under the gun. Oh, actually it's not under the gun. It's a hijack open. I guess the cutoff is a new player. I love king queen suited, man. I think I like it more than ace king. I feel like okay. Get 4-bet. Little bit on the small side. Would expect like the average 4-bet size to be closer to 120. Wouldn't really matter. I mean, facing hijack 4-bet, never folding king queen suited. But definitely not when I'm getting a better than average price. And on this flop, unless something awful happens, I imagine I'm just going with this hand, or going broke with this hand, but still want to make sure I'm going broke the right way. So just going to start out with a call and hopefully let him go kind of nutso with whatever low equity hands he wants to go nutso with. 3 of spades, definitely going broke if he jams here. Oh, he checks. Interesting decision, though. I think with SPR1, I'm going to lean towards checking back, give him a chance to just blast the river with, I don't know, ace-king, ace-10, that part of his range, ace-5 suited. That's one of the disastrous things that I was talking about on the flop. I don't really know where I expect the bluffs to come from anymore. I guess like pocket tens is one hand that might bluff. Maybe a hand like king jack suited turns itself into a bluff on this river, trying to just fold out a queen or some sort of weaker ace-x. But yeah, this is probably one of the only things that could have happened that's going to make me fold. It's really hard to figure out where the bluffs come from now. And if he's even like slightly under bluffing the river, then I think I'm kind of toast. Open jack 10 of diamonds in middle position, get 3-bet by the cutoff. Easy continue here. Not bad at all. I think you could definitely have a strategy that plays check raises on this flop texture, but I don't think that I'm going to be putting a ton of money in with this hand. I think there's just a lot of equity changing turns or texture changing turns that are going to be tough for me to navigate from out of position once I like define my hand a bunch and then say like have to check the turn on this type of turn, but also an 8 or a queen or a king. So gonna reserve my check raises without, I don't know, some sort of queen in it or something for later down the road. Check back on the turn. I think makes a lot of sense from his range. I think we have a question now on the river, whether to go for block or check. Obviously not great. We get a little bit counterfeited by like the aces, kings, and queens, but still think that we can target Jack X and maybe even 10X on the river. Don't think those hands are going to bet once the 4-liner peels on the turn. So I'm just going to do the betting myself. I think I want to get called now that he doesn't. Nice. Yeah. I'm just going to say, I think I want to get called once he doesn't snap the river. I expect his overpairs and obviously hands that are better than overpairs to call pretty quickly there. I'm going to defend the big blind just with 7-4 of spades if the small blind lets me. And he lets me. Small c-bet, flop, open ender plus backdoor flush draw. Gonna be check raising this. Classic. Check raise, flop with a draw, and turn a pair. I used to go back and forth on what I like doing here, but I've since come around to just continuing to barrel almost as if I didn't make the pair. I still think that's the best way to realize my equity. And that's sort of like the main thing that I want to do with, you know, even once I turn a little bit of showdown, I still think my hand wants to realize its equity just by continuing to bet and then betting rivers where I improve. I've gone back and forth so many times on how I play this spot, like check raise a flush draw, make bottom pair, check raise an open ender, make bottom pair, mid pair, whatever. Oh, who knows? Maybe this guy's just gonna fold, and I don't even have to worry about what to do on the river. Wow, last second call. Wonder what that means. Probably wasn't thinking about raising, I assume. Don't think people use that much time to think about raising. Don't think very many good things happen when I check, so I'm actually just gonna block the river here. Hard to figure out where his like bluffs are gonna come from. He folds pretty quickly. I think that when I check the river, most of the time he's just gonna bet with hands that are better than mine, so straights. I think hands like sets and a lot of the two pairs just either raise, like bet 3-bet the flop, or raise a turn or something like that. And even if they don't, I don't know if they value bet on a 4-liner. I guess sets I'm behind, so to scratch that one out of the equation. But like worst 2-pair or like king X, I guess that would be like my main bluff catch target. I think just checks back on the river, so I think it's another spot where I should just do the betting myself. I think you can go either way with queen jack suited, especially facing an early position open, or versus specifically an early position open. Just gonna flat this time, and very likely start out with a check call. Here, maybe it goes check check. Holding jack deuce suited on the other table. Don't think this hand is strong enough to check raise even versus the small size, so sticking with the plan. Check call. Pretty wet turn. Gonna be an interesting spot if he comes out with a big turn C bet. Would be really close with queen jack, I think. But he checks back. And now it's funny how I go from being a little scared on the turn to feeling like this is a pretty comfortable value bet. Nice. Ace jack in the big blind. Don't flop much. I think I'll still peel versus a small C bet, and then fold versus like half pot or larger probably. Not going to be one of the hands that I bluff this turn. Probably wouldn't do a ton of betting on this turn. I think generally the king is going to be better for the PFR's range than it is for mine. He's going to have just like all the strongest king X's, and obviously when I don't 3-bet pre-flop, I'm not going to have hands like ace king and king queen. Close spot as to whether to check or bluff the river. I think this ace high is strong enough to check, and just, I mean, the only other ace high I lose to is ace queen. Expect him to check back like hands like ace 6, ace 7, ace 8, ace 10. Yeah, end up losing versus ace 5, but don't know if there's too much I could have done there. Immediately get right back into it with pocket kings and flop a full house. Actually going to start out with check here. One of the cool things that we've seen in the data is that blind versus blind on paired boards, the big blind does a ton of stabbing. So I think he'll put money in the pot with hands that just can't call a bet or will never call a bet. And just going to start check raising here and try to play for stacks if we can by the river. But I think this method or this strategy still lets us play huge pots versus his, you know, gut shots, open enders, and obviously his 10x is still getting stacked, but it gives me the added benefit of him sometimes just putting money in the pot with like 7-8 suited or jack 6. Just random things, random hands that can call a bet on the flop but can try to take a stab themselves. And guessing that's the type of range that I ran into once he bet folds the flop. Unfortunate that we didn't get to play a huge one there for the plan explain.
This is Chasing Poker Greatness with your host, Brad Wilson. Coach Brad approved.